Sam was a cowboy who lived far from the noise of towns and roads. His land stretched wide with dry grass, old fences, and quiet hills that touched the sky. Every morning, he woke before the sun. He made coffee over a small fire, fed his horse, and checked the land that had been in his family for many years. Sam did not talk much. He believed the land understood him better than people ever could. His days were slow but honest. He fixed broken fence posts. He cleaned the barn. He watched clouds move across the sky and listened to the wind. At night, he sat outside his small wooden house and looked at the stars. Life was simple, and that was how Sam liked it. One late afternoon, as the sun began to fall, Sam heard a sound that did not belong to the land. It was soft, weak, and filled with fear. He stopped walking and listened closely. The sound came again, this time clearer. It came from near the old barn that had not been used in years. Sam walked carefully toward the noise. As he reached the barn, he saw something that made his heart tighten. 3 small donkeys stood close together near the broken fence. Their coats were dirty. Their ribs showed. Their eyes were wide and tired. They had no rope, no mark, no sign of where they came from. Someone had left them there. Sam stood quietly for a long moment. He knew how hard life already was. Food cost money. Care took time. He had only 1 horse and no extra help. Taking in 3 donkeys was not a small thing. One of the donkeys stepped forward. It was brown and calm, standing tall even though it was weak. Another was gray and restless, sniffing everything around. The third was smaller, lighter in color, and stayed slightly behind the others. Her eyes watched Sam closely, careful and alert. Sam sighed slowly. He opened the gate. "You can stay," he said softly. That night, Sam gave them water and old hay. It was not much, but it was enough. He cleaned a small space in the barn so they could rest. The donkeys did not move far from him. They stayed together, as if afraid he might disappear. Sam named them the next morning. The calm brown one he called Ben. The curious gray one he called Rusty. The quiet watchful one he named Hope. Hope did not make much noise, but she noticed everything. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. The donkeys grew stronger. Sam learned their habits. Ben liked routine. Rusty liked trouble. Hope watched the land like a guard, ears always turning toward the smallest sound. If a stranger drove near the fence, Hope brayed loudly until Sam came out. If the wind changed or a storm was coming, she became restless before the clouds appeared. Sam began to trust her in a way he could not explain. Life settled into a new rhythm. Sam worked the land. The donkeys followed him everywhere. When he repaired fences, they stood nearby. When he rested under a tree, they gathered around him. Sam had never planned to keep donkeys. He had taken them in because he could not turn away. Slowly, without realizing it, they became part of his life. Years passed. Sam's hair turned gray. His back hurt more after long days. His steps became slower. Still, he worked. Still, the donkeys stayed with him. They grew old together. 14 years went by. One winter came harder than the others. Snow fell heavy and early. The land became quiet and white. Sam wrapped himself in a thick coat and prepared to check the far fence line near the rocky edge of his land. He had not checked it since the storm. He saddled his horse and started the long ride. The donkeys followed behind him, moving carefully through the snow. Sam did not notice how cold the wind had become. He did not notice the sky turning gray. As he reached the rocky ground, his horse stepped on hidden ice. The ground gave way. Sam fell hard. Pain shot through his leg and chest. The cold bit into him fast. He tried to stand, but his body would not listen. His breath came out in short, weak bursts. Snow began to fall again. The donkeys rushed toward him. Ben stood close, blocking the wind. Rusty moved around in circles, restless and afraid. Hope ran back and forth, braying loudly, her voice cutting through the cold air. Sam looked at the sky. His vision blurred. He thought about the quiet nights, the land, the choice he made 14 years ago. Hope brayed again, louder than before, and the sound carried far across the frozen land. Hope did not stop braying. Her voice rose again and again, strong and sharp against the cold wind. Snow fell heavier now, covering the ground and Sam's still body. The land looked empty, but Hope knew better. She believed someone would hear. Ben stayed close to Sam's side. His body blocked the wind as best as it could. Rusty walked in wide circles, stamping his feet, shaking snow from his coat. The cold cut deep, but none of the donkeys left. Sam's eyes opened for a moment. He could see Hope running back and forth. He wanted to speak, but his lips felt frozen. His chest hurt with every breath. He closed his eyes again, holding onto the sound of Hope's call. Far away, near the lower fields, a man named Luke was checking his own cattle. He had worked the land nearby for many years and knew the sounds of animals well. When he heard the loud braying, he stopped walking. "That is not normal," Luke said to himself. The sound came again, steady and urgent. Luke followed it through the snow. Each call seemed to guide him, pulling him closer. Hope saw Luke first. She ran toward him, then stopped, then turned back toward Sam. She brayed again and ran in the same path. Luke understood. He followed. When Luke reached the rocky area, he saw Sam lying in the snow. The horse stood nearby, shaking but alive. The donkeys stayed close, watching Luke with worried eyes. Luke rushed forward and checked Sam's breathing. It was weak, but still there. He wrapped Sam in his coat and called for help on his radio. Soon, others arrived with a truck and warm blankets. They carried Sam away from the cold. Hope watched until he was gone. Only then did she fall quiet. Sam woke later in a small hospital room. His leg was broken. His ribs were hurt. His body felt heavy and sore. A nurse told him he was lucky. Another hour in the cold would have changed everything. Sam closed his eyes and thought of the land. He thought of the donkeys. Especially Hope. When Sam returned home weeks later, he walked slowly with a stick. The land looked the same, but he felt different. Ben walked beside him. Rusty sniffed his coat. Hope stood still, watching his face. Sam knelt as best he could and rested his hand on Hope's neck. "You saved me," he said softly. Life changed after that winter. Sam did less heavy work. Luke and others helped him more. The donkeys stayed close, closer than ever. Hope continued to watch the land. She still warned Sam of strangers and storms. But now, Sam watched her too, with deep respect. Time moved forward, slow and steady. Seasons changed. Snow melted. Grass returned. Sam healed, though he never walked the same again. One evening, as the sun fell low, Sam sat near the barn. Hope stood beside him, calm and strong. He thought about the day he found her, small and afraid, standing behind the others. Kindness had brought them together. Loyalty had kept them strong. Sam smiled quietly, knowing some bonds were never planned, but meant to be. Spring arrived slowly that year. Snow melted into small streams, and the land began to breathe again. Sam watched from his porch as green grass pushed through the dirt. His body was healing, but not fully. His legs still hurt when he walked too long. His chest felt tight on cold mornings. He accepted these changes quietly, the same way he accepted everything else in life. The donkeys noticed the changes before anyone else. Ben walked closer to Sam than before, never letting him move too far alone. Rusty still had his curious ways, but he stayed nearby more often. Hope remained alert, her eyes always scanning the land, her ears turning at every sound. Sam reduced his work. He fixed only what truly needed fixing. Luke came by more often to help. Other neighbors checked in too. News of what happened had traveled across the land, and people spoke with respect when they mentioned Sam and the donkey who saved him. Sam did not like attention. He preferred quiet moments. Each morning, he fed the animals slowly, leaning on his stick. The donkeys waited patiently. Hope always stood last, watching Sam closely, as if counting his steps. One afternoon, dark clouds gathered faster than expected. The wind shifted suddenly. Sam felt the change in his bones, but before he could react, Hope brayed loudly. Her voice cut through the air, warning and clear. A storm followed soon after. Strong wind pushed against the barn. Rain fell heavy. Sam moved the animals inside just in time. As thunder rolled above them, Sam rested against the barn wall, breathing hard. "You knew again," he said softly to Hope. Hope stood calm, steady as stone. As the months passed, Sam noticed something else. Hope was slowing down. She still watched everything, but her steps were not as quick. Her breathing became deeper after short walks. Age had reached her too. Sam felt a quiet worry grow inside him. 14 years was a long time. He had grown old with them. He had shared his land, his food, his silence. One morning, Hope did not come to the feeding call right away. Sam waited. When she appeared, she walked slower than before. Sam touched her neck and felt her warmth. He knew she was tired. That day, Sam did not work at all. He sat near the barn with Hope beside him. Ben and Rusty rested nearby. The land was quiet. Memories filled Sam's mind. The first night he found them. The cold winter day. Hope's loud call cutting through the storm. He realized something deep then. Saving her had not been a single moment. It had been every day after. Weeks later, Hope lay down near the old tree behind the barn and did not stand again. Sam stayed with her all day. He spoke softly, telling her about the land, the sky, the seasons they shared. When Hope passed, the land felt empty in a way Sam had never known. Ben and Rusty stood still, their heads low. Sam buried Hope beneath the tree she loved, marking the place with a simple stone. That night, Sam sat outside under the stars. The wind moved gently across the hills. He did not feel alone, even in loss. He felt grateful. Hope had not only saved his life. She had taught him something deeper. That kindness given without question could return in ways no one could expect. From that day on, Sam lived slower, kinder, and more aware of every moment. He spoke Hope's name often, not with sadness, but with respect. And the land remembered her too. Life after Hope felt different for Sam. The land was the same, but the silence had changed. Mornings felt longer. Evenings felt heavier. Ben and Rusty stayed close, but there was a space that could not be filled. Sam accepted this quietly, just as he had accepted everything else. Each morning, Sam walked slowly to the tree where Hope rested. He stood there for a moment, placing his hand on the rough bark. He did not speak much. He did not need to. The wind moved through the leaves, and Sam felt a calm he could not explain. Ben and Rusty changed too. Ben became even more gentle. He walked slowly beside Sam, matching his pace. Rusty stopped wandering far. He stayed near the barn, as if guarding it. The bond between the three grew stronger. Spring turned into summer. Grass grew tall. Flowers bloomed along the fence lines. Sam spent his days sitting more than working. He watched the land instead of fixing it. Luke still came by to help, but Sam refused too much assistance. He wanted to remain useful in his own way. One afternoon, a group of children from a nearby town visited the land with their teacher. They had heard the story of the cowboy and the donkey who saved him. Sam did not like crowds, but he allowed the visit. The children listened closely as Luke explained what happened that winter day. They looked at Ben and Rusty with wide eyes. One child asked, "Where is the donkey who saved you?" Sam pointed to the tree behind the barn. "That is where she rests," he said softly. The children grew quiet. One of them placed a small flower near the tree. Sam felt something warm in his chest. Hope's story was still alive. As summer ended, Sam felt weaker. Age pressed on him more heavily now. He moved carefully. Some days, he stayed inside when the pain grew strong. Ben and Rusty waited near the door, patient and calm. One night, Sam dreamed of the past. He saw himself younger, strong, walking through the land. He saw 3 small donkeys standing near the broken fence. He woke with a quiet smile. He realized something important. Saving the donkeys had not only changed their lives. It had given his life meaning beyond work and land. Autumn arrived with cool air and falling leaves. Sam prepared for winter carefully. He stacked wood. He checked the barn. He made sure Ben and Rusty had everything they needed. One evening, as the sun set low, Sam sat near the fire inside his home. Ben and Rusty rested outside, close enough to hear him if needed. Sam felt tired, but peaceful. He looked around the small room. The walls held memories. The table had marks from years of use. This place had been his whole world. Sam whispered, "Thank you," though he did not say to whom. That night, the stars shone bright. The land was quiet. Sam slept deeply. In the days that followed, Sam grew weaker. Luke visited more often. Neighbors checked on him. Sam remained calm. He spoke kindly to everyone. He asked only one thing. "Promise you will care for them," he said, looking at Ben and Rusty. Luke nodded. "I promise." One cold morning, Sam did not wake. He passed peacefully, surrounded by the land he loved. Ben and Rusty stood near the house, still and quiet. The wind moved gently across the hills. The land seemed to pause, honoring the man who had cared for it so long. Sam was gone, but his kindness remained. The land felt quiet after Sam was gone. Not empty, but still, like it was holding its breath. Morning came, and the sun rose over the hills just as it always had. Birds moved across the sky. The wind touched the grass. Life continued, even as something important had ended. Luke arrived early that day. He stood outside Sam's small house for a long moment before stepping forward. Ben and Rusty watched him closely. They did not move away. They seemed to understand that Luke was someone Sam trusted. Luke opened the door slowly. The house smelled of wood and old coffee. Everything was just as Sam had left it. Luke felt a deep respect as he stood there. He knew this land was more than property. It was a life built with patience, care, and quiet kindness. News of Sam's passing spread across the nearby towns. People came to the land not with noise, but with calm hearts. Some brought flowers. Some stood near the fence in silence. Many spoke about Sam's simple way of living and the story of the donkey who saved him. Ben and Rusty stayed close to the barn. They did not wander far. They waited. Luke kept his promise. He moved Ben and Rusty to his own nearby land, where wide fields stretched under open sky. The transition was gentle. Luke brought familiar hay. He let them explore slowly. He never rushed them. Every day, Luke walked them near the tree where Hope rested. He noticed how Ben always paused there. How Rusty stood still, ears forward, as if listening. Hope was gone, but she was not forgotten. Luke decided to do something Sam never would have done for himself. He placed a small wooden sign near the old tree. It had only a few simple words. Kindness returns. People began to visit quietly. Parents brought children. Teachers spoke about care and responsibility. They told the story of a cowboy who helped animals when no one else would, and how that kindness came back to save his life. Ben and Rusty grew older too. Their steps slowed. Their faces showed age. But they were peaceful. They lived their days in the sun, resting, eating, and walking the land they now shared with others. Luke often sat near them in the evenings. He would tell them about Sam. About how he worked. About how he spoke softly. About how Hope once called into the cold and saved a life. The donkeys listened in their own quiet way. Years passed. One spring morning, Ben did not stand when Luke came to feed him. Luke knelt beside him and placed a hand on his neck. Ben passed calmly, without struggle. Luke buried him near Hope, beneath the same wide sky. Rusty lived a little longer. He stayed close to Luke and the land. He liked standing near the fence where children often waved. When Rusty passed, he too was laid to rest near the tree. The land now held 3 graves and 1 story. People still came. Some left notes. Some left flowers. Some simply stood and looked across the hills. They spoke about Sam not as a hero, but as a man who made a simple choice and stayed true to it. Luke grew older too. Before he left the land to the next generation, he told them the story. "Care for this place," he said, "and remember why it matters." The land remained open. The tree grew taller. The sign stayed simple. Kindness returns. And so the story lived on, carried by the wind, the land, and the quiet memory of a cowboy and 3 donkeys whose lives became something greater than any of them could have planned.